The hockey world is in complete and total agreement on goaltenders. We're not. We're not even close. So the NHL Network puts out its top 10, and I've got it down here. Okay, they've got Bobrovsky, Holtby, Vasilevsky, Hellebuck, Quick, Fleury, Rinne, Rask, Anderson, and Gibson. We're all in agreement. We're not. The fan vote has Fleury at number 1. Why? Because you're going to have a lot of Vegas voters. A lot of Vegas voters are going to say we love Marc-Andre Fleury. There are going to be some Penguins voters saying Fleury, and based on the playoffs he just had, people are going to vote for Fleury. Holtby's number 2. He just won the Stanley Cup. Pekka Rinne, number 3. He just won the Vezina. Jonathan Quick, we remember the first-round series he had. Carey Price, it's his name. It's his reputation. Vasilevsky, well, at this point you start getting into the guys who had a great season. Vasilevsky, Bobrovsky, and Hellebuck. Lundqvist is at number 9 because there's a lot of Rangers fans who still think Lundqvist is a premier goaltender. And 10 is Rask because Rask had a good season. He did. But I think he gets overrated at times, and there are many times as a Bruins fan he makes me nervous. So I want to look at some other ratings before we get into mine. Because, again, this is all absolutely subjective, and it's amazing how all over the map these ratings are. Brian Boucher, who was a goaltender in the NHL, so I respect his opinion completely. Vasilevsky is the guy he has at number 1, followed by Bobrovsky and Hellebuck. So 6, 7, and 8 are his 1, 2, and 3. He has Fleury at 4th. Then Rinne, Quick, Holtby, Anderson, Gibson's 9th on his list, and Tuukka Rask. So Gibson's on the network's top 10, Boucher's top 10, not on the fan vote's top 10. Gibson's underrated. Mike Johnson, who played in the NHL, has Bobrovsky at 1, Vasilevsky at 2, Hellebuck at 3. So his top 3 matches Brian Boucher's. Rinne at 4, Rask at 5. That's high, admittedly. 6 is Quick, 7 is Gibson, 8 is Fleury, 9 he has Freddie Anderson, Dubnyk at 10. So here's 2 former NHL players, one a goaltender, one a veteran of the game. They both have Freddie Anderson top 10. Now, people will point out Mike Johnson played for the Leafs. That makes him biased. Boucher did not. So there's that argument to be had. Jamison Coyle, official account, follower of the NHL Network. And I like, you know what? Let's just grab just whoever. Far as I know, no actual NHL ties other than an official account. Holtby, he has at number 1, followed by Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky, Quick, and Hellebuck. So what's interesting is his top 5 are not completely out of line with everybody else's. But what else is interesting is Johnson doesn't have Holtby in the top 10. Whereas Jamison has him at number 1, and Boucher has him at number 7. Fleury's number 6, Rinne, Matt Murray at number 8, Rask at number 9, Gibson at number 10. So Murray shows up on the list for the first time. And, you know, Penguin fans are going to say, well, yeah, Matt Murray had a down year because of, you know, the passing of his father and, you know, an injury issue. But other than that, he's a top 10 goaltender in the league. And you know what? I can see their point. Jamie Hirsch, she's a reporter for NHL Network. And I want to say it's either the Flyers or the Rangers, I'm thinking, and now it'll turn it's the Islanders or something. But anyways, Jamie Hirsch, who I respect her opinion, and just to get somebody else's opinion, again, I went with as many that were connected to the tweet sent out by the network as possible. Jamie Hirsch has Bobrovsky at 1, so she agrees with Mike Johnson. Vasilevsky at 2, again the same. Hellebuck at 3, again the same. And then she has Holtby at 4. Blows up Johnson's list. Then Fleury, Quick, Gibson. Again, Gibson shows up in everybody's list, not the fan list. Rinne at 8, Dubnyk at 9, and she has Lundqvist at 10. That's why I'm saying I think she does Ranger games, because Lundqvist at 10. But again, I'm trying to think, is it Philly, Rangers? Anyways, somebody will let me know in the comment section. Stu Grimson, and I put Stu up here because if I didn't put Stu up here and he's like looking through videos like, why isn't my list up here? I could get destroyed. He has Holtby at number 1, so he agrees with Jamison Coyle. Hellebuck at number 2, that's the highest anybody has Hellebuck, followed by Quick, Bobrovsky, Fleury, Gibson at 6, which is the highest we see him, Vasilevsky, Rask, Rinne. He has Ranta at number 10. He's the only one that remembered Antti Ranta. So that I find interesting. Now, the network itself, so I'm guessing this is an amalgamation of all the votes that they took, has Bobrovsky at 1st, Holtby at 2nd, which is interesting since Holtby doesn't show up on a lot of lists among people that are on the air. Vasilevsky 3rd, Hellebuck 4th, Quick at 5th, Fleury at 6th, Rinne at 7th, Rask 8th, Anderson 9th, and John Gibson's 10th. So let's get into mine. Now, I did a top 20. Why did I do a top 20? Because I think there's a lot of goalies who don't get mentioned when you do a top 10 list. Like, for instance, actually, no, not full names, Shannon. You don't have room for full names. Smarten up, smarten up. Get it together. Mike Smith. Smith, injury issues, but a good goaltender. And the reason I'm doing a top 20 is because I think there's at least 20 solid starting goaltenders in the NHL. And I think you can use different stats to argue why they're better. And Smith is a guy who, if he's healthy all year and plays the way we know he can, could be top 10 even. But at his age and with the season he just had, it's hard to predict that. 19, I'm going to get flack on this one, because I went over these a few times last night. And I kept thinking to myself, you know, it really doesn't matter, Shannon, where you put him, because people are going to take issue. Lundqvist, right now, I have him at 19. Because I think Lundqvist, at this stage, I think his game's taken a bit of a step back. I think he had an average year. I think he's an average goaltender. I think the potential is there for him to do well this year. But again, I can't judge this based on potential. Number 18, if I can get them apart. Number 18 is Luongo. I had Luongo higher, but I realized, you know, I can't have Luongo that high because of, again, age and his ability to stay healthy all year. Luongo's numbers last year were insane. They were great. His 2017-18 season was fantastic. He had a great year. He was an inspirational leader. And, you know, if not for the Brian Boyle story, Luongo probably wins the Masterton, and rightfully so. But I can't have him higher than 18th. I just can't. At 17, you know, we're all going to look back on how we rated these, and we're going to regret it. And we're going to regret it because I think Matt Murray's probably better than this, but his regular season stats don't show it. And then in the postseason, he started off fantastic. And Penguins fans were rightfully very excited that he had this great shutout streak going. But once that stopped, and once they were playing Washington, it stopped fast. And Murray right now, for me, I have him ahead of Luongo, Lundqvist, and Smith. Which, when you think about it, it's kind of crazy. And yet the fact that he's 17th is probably crazy as well. 16th. And again, a lot of this is well, can he be healthy all year? And which Ben Bishop is Dallas going to have this year? Is he going to be the starter that he was in Tampa at times, where he really looked like a world beater? There was the one season that Tampa looked fantastic. Bishop gets hurt in the playoffs, and then it doesn't work out for them. But again, Bishop kind of has a reputation of, well, he folds in the playoffs, depending on who you ask. For me, Bishop's a decent goaltender. I'm not as enthused as some Dallas fans may have been when they signed him, but we'll see if I'm right or they're right about that one. At 15, I think Devan Dubnyk is a perfectly serviceable starting goaltender, and I think that he gets a lot of flack for how things ended up last year for Minnesota. But honestly, he played well, and he played well against Winnipeg for the most part. Now, yes, when the floodgates opened, they opened, but I still like Dubnyk. And yeah, I'm okay with putting him ahead of Bishop. At 14, Martin Jones. You know, the one that keeps putting up wins, saves. His goals against is good, save percentage solid. He trucks along every year, and he doesn't really get talked about a whole lot. And you'll notice Jones doesn't really show up anywhere in here. And that's probably fine with San Jose fans because, you know what, whatever. San Jose would likely relish the idea of being underdogs, and they were when they went to the Stanley Cup final. And even as a team that's being favored by myself, by voters on the channel to finish first, Jones doesn't get a whole lot of credit. Number 13, and this is where the debate comes in, right? So I'm going to put it up here at 13, and I'm going to state this. Carey Price had a .900 save percentage last year. He did not play well. He had 16 wins in 49 games. And he looked bad in a lot of those losses. There were a number of games I watched of Montreal's last year where I would see a goal go in and I would say out loud, Price doesn't allow that goal. Meaning Carey Price normally would not allow that goal. That is not a goal Carey Price should be allowing. So Price had a bad year. Now, going into this season, you know, he's a guy who struggled with health issues for 2 out of 3 seasons. He is a player who has put up substandard numbers in one of those 3 seasons. I just can't, in good faith, put him in the top 10 because then you're just wiping out really excellent seasons had by other goaltenders, and your excuse is, well, yeah, but it's Carey Price. But he hasn't been Vezina level since 2015. Again, I understand. There's been injuries, there's been reasons, but he hasn't been a top 10 goaltender in my eyes over the last 12 months especially. And there are too many goaltenders who had really good seasons that I can't put behind him. I just can't. Number 12, and you didn't see him at all. And if I was just doing a top 10, you wouldn't see him either. But honestly, Semyon Varlamov had a pretty damn good year. Varlamov had, honestly, a really pretty solid season. And it gets swept under the carpet because everybody talks about Nathan MacKinnon and the year MacKinnon had and how fantastic that first line was. And rightfully so. Again, I understand it. But Varlamov put up some excellent statistics. And it just doesn't get... It doesn't get reported on very much. Number 11. Once he learned how to make a save, I have Raanta as number 11. Again, Raanta, no love for Raanta from anybody except Stu Grimson. And that may be a smart move by the Grim Reaper. But for me, Raanta, he had one amazing season. The second half of the year, he was the best goalie in the league. He, at least for me, nudges these guys down for that reason. Now, Montreal fans are going to say, if you're starting a team, you're going to start with Price, not Raanta. I don't know if I'm starting a team if I want to start with Price because Price has shown a propensity for getting injured. And that is part of it. And then looking at his numbers last year, I would take Raanta over Price. It's just, that's how I feel about it. Number 10. So we're to the top 10. And that's where Freddie shows up for me. Freddie Anderson takes a lot of flack. His numbers were amazing, and then he had that one bad run there. He had one just horrific run. His save percentage was .918 last year. It was .918 the year before. That's above league average. We can all agree that Freddie Anderson plays behind a defense in Toronto that's kind of spotty. You can't look at Anderson's decent numbers and say, well, yeah, but they'd be better if he was a better goalie when he plays behind a bad defense. Because part of the argument against Price has been, well, the defense in front of him isn't any good. Well, then you can't. The fact, too, that with Montreal, Niemi and Lindgren put up better numbers than Price behind that same defense. Again, Anderson, for me, is a top 10 goaltender in the NHL. Number 9, and I really agonized on this one. I wasn't sure Rask should be in the top 10, and then I thought about it. I looked over the numbers. I looked over the last few years. I think Rask is still a good starter as long as he gets enough backup relief from Halak this year. I think he'll still put up decent numbers. Honestly, this is close. I could have had Rask at 10 and Anderson at 9. And yet, you know, I understand Rask outdueled Anderson in the playoffs, but I wouldn't put that Game 7 loss on Freddie. I really can't. And I like Anderson, and 2 years ago when the Toronto Maple Leafs traded for Anderson, you guys can look back. 2 years ago, when Freddie Anderson was picked up by Lou Lamoriello, I said, this is their starter, that's a fantastic move. Even though Anderson had played behind a great defense in Anaheim, that's the ongoing thing, right? Goaltender plays well? Yeah, but look at his defense, it's great. Goaltender plays badly? Yeah, but look at that defense. That defense is bad. It's an amazing setup if you're a goaltender, I guess, unless, you know, everybody just goes, he's a bad goaltender, and it's just, I don't know. A lot of it, again, comes in reputation. Number 8, this was tough, too. I think John Gibson deserves more credit than he gets. And I think what hurt Gibson this year, and I told Anaheim Duck fans this towards the end of the year, I think Gibson would have had more Vezina nominations and Vezina talk had Ryan Miller not played well. Because Ryan Miller's stats were amazing, it takes away from what Gibson did. And I know that's not fair, but it's just it's how it works. Your starter, if your backup puts up just as solid of stats or even better, it may diminish that goaltender in the eyes of voters, especially in the case of Gibson, where he's on the West Coast. Being on the West Coast definitely makes it harder to win an award like that. Number 7. And again, this one was tough, but I had to say, you know what? Fleury had a dream season, and yet he did get injured. He wasn't able to play the full season. He's got a lot of miles on him. He's not old, but he's got a lot of miles on him from all the playoff runs in Pittsburgh, and he overachieved last year. So that overachievement, now he could do it again this year, absolutely, but I couldn't put him ahead of the guys I've got in the top 6. I just couldn't justify it. Number 6. Well, to me, Rinne is an excellent goaltender, but I could not put him in the top 5 after the way that playoff series ended. I know he had the Vezina. I know he's an excellent goaltender. I understand the fan vote had him at 3rd. I fully expect a lot of hate. I have Rinne ahead of where the network had him. You flip these two, okay? My top 10 right now looks a lot like the network's, just it's in a different order, but it's very, very similar. I think that Rinne, because of age, I think that's part of the reason he gets dropped down by people, and yeah. So that's where I have him. At 5, and I agree with the network. I don't want to agree with the network. I just don't want to agree with the network. Because, again, you know, people are going to be looking at this like, well, where does Shannon differ completely? Well, my top 10, I have the same top 10 that they do, just in a different order. So Jonathan Quick for me is at number 5. Great first round. His stats, though, in the regular season very often are lower than you think they'd be. So you expect this really amazing statistical wonder, and then you look at it and you go, oh, well, he wasn't even top 5 in that category. He wasn't even top 10 in that category. That's weird. Because you think he's going to be there. You think he's going to be higher up statistically than he ends up being. Number 4, and this is where I completely differ with the network. I think I have him the lowest. Nope. I'm tied with Grimson. And fan vote had Bobrovsky at 7. I have Bobrovsky at 4. I think that we're at the stage now where his lack of success in the playoffs has affected him. And he had a .920 save percentage last year, which was down from .930 the year before. And I think some of the luster has gone off of Bobrovsky. To be honest, I could have had him at 5th, and I could have had Quick at 4th. But again, the regular season numbers for me bump Quick down to 5 and leave Bobrovsky at 4th. But it's close. It's really honestly close. At 3, this is where I get slaughtered too, right? This is where people are going to be like, what are you talking about? So Holtby's numbers last year were .907 as a save percentage, and he wasn't very good, and he was the backup going into the playoffs. So this is where Montreal fans are going to say, well, you know, what are you talking about? Because you got Price at 13th, and Holtby wasn't very good either, but Holtby won the Stanley Cup. And Holtby was a major reason that the Capitals won the Stanley Cup. He didn't get the Conn Smythe, that goes to Ovechkin, agreed, but if you're going to have a top 3 or 4, Holtby's going to be in there for Washington. And for me, I think he's one of the best goaltenders in the league. I honestly do. Number 2, I have Hellebuck for Winnipeg. These aren't quite going to fit, are they? That's weird because they fit before I started this countdown. Which means that at number 1, I have Vasi. So why Vasi? Vasilevsky, he's young. He's only going to get better. He had some issues this past season with the amount of games that he played and getting tired, but he should be through that this year. And for Hellebuck at number 2, honestly, the guy was amazing. And Hellebuck and all of the weird quirks the guy has. We're going to show the weird quirks, like him looking back and forth, his eyes just back, like, does that. Hellebuck has so many quirks, there's no way that he can't follow it up with another great season. And yet, people can argue a top 20 list of goaltenders, a top 10 list of goaltenders, and it's hard to find a right or wrong answer. Because, again, this is grading them in the moment. This is grading them based on last season and where I think they're going to be this year. And again, there's some goaltenders that I think based on their past experience will get a pass from fans. Totally understand that. I know as a fan here in Vancouver, I watch Kirk McLean sometimes get a pass. In Boston, there were times where I gave Andy Moog a pass where I probably shouldn't have. And then I did it again with him in Dallas. It's easy. When you watch a goaltender all the time, when that's your prime focus, it can be really easy to say, well, the guys that I watch are the best. And they don't get the respect they deserve. And there's something to be said for that. I do my best to watch as much hockey as I can during the season. For people who've just started watching my videos during the off season, yeah, I watch a ton. And I do a lot of live streams while I'm watching the games. I can't live stream footage because that's copyright and then, for me. But it can be really tough because you do get emotionally attached to the players. You get emotionally attached to who you feel is the best. That's why you have Marc-Andre Fleury at number 1, Carey Price at number 5, and Lundqvist at number 9. Those are the ones that stand out to me as guys that people are voting for because that's their favorite goalie. They really like him. They really want him to succeed. And so I completely get it. I understand there'll be downvotes on this and there'll be people complaining about who isn't on the list because, again, we get attached to goalies more than anybody else, I think, on the team, especially backups. Backups are usually the most popular player on a team, so I haven't rated backups yet. I probably will, but this is your starters. I did the tandem so you guys can guess where I rate the backups. Obviously with the Nashville Predators, I think Saros is probably the best backup in the league, so that bumps them up to the best tandem for me. But again, it's all subjective, and nobody's list is the same. I'm close to the network, and I'm sorry. I apologize because I don't strive to be close to the network, and I did this completely independent of what was on the board, and there it is. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know your top 10. So there's my top 10, and there's my top 20, just to give you guys a picture of how I see the goaltenders. But again, Murray could step in there this year. Bishop could have a great year. Dubnyk is better than people give him credit for. Jones is definitely a sleeper. Varlamov had a great year, and Ronta knows how to make a save. So Ronta could absolutely end up bumping somebody out of there. So let me know who's overrated on this board and who isn't on this board and should be. And then a year from now, you could look like a genius. Well, even better, by November, you could look like a genius for saying, hey, I said this guy was going to be good and I was right. Or I said this guy was overrated and I was right. Be interested to know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.